Ayo, Helldivers 2 just dropped their Freedom's Flame Warbond the other day, and I decided, let's check it out like the good old days when people cared about democracy. I've been dabbling in the Escalation of Freedom update lately to see if the game is, quote, worth coming back to, but more on that later, maybe. There are many things to unlock in the Freedom's Flame Warbond, but many of them are cosmetic, so today I'll be primarily focusing on only the important stuff, aka the SG-451 Cookout Shotgun, the I-09 Heatseeker armor, the Flam-66 Torcher, the I-102 Draconaut armor, the P-72 Crisper, and the Firebomb Hellpod Booster. My goal of today's video is to let you know, if you're still helldiving that is, if this warbond is worth your money or your hard-earned super creds. Is there anything hard meta here, or should you just pass? Starting with the SG-451 Cookout Shotgun. I had high hopes for this gun because I love shotguns in Helldivers 2. I guess some things never change. Stat-wise, the Cookout has a fire rate of 80, putting it at the same rate of fire as both the Punisher and the Slugger. In short, the Cookout is basically a modified version of the Punisher. Both weapons are able to penetrate light armor, and although the Punisher deals more raw damage per shot, the Cookout does deal extra damage over time because it can light targets on fire. Personally, the Cookout was probably the weapon I enjoyed the most out of the new Warbond, but again, I like shotguns and Helldivers. Because it hits hard, I think it has the ability to hang in high-level content, so thumbs up there. Its biggest downside is that it can't penetrate medium armor, whereas its cousin, the Slugger, can, and that's something I very much value for bug killing. There's really nothing more annoying than those shield-headed bugs, or what my friend Defizzle lovingly refers to as, quote, big booty bitches, never change fizz, that are slightly more annoying to kill if you can't penetrate medium armor. One of the best things going for the Cookout is that I've noticed it has a lot of stagger, aka if I shoot something with the Cookout and it doesn't die, it's sure as hell gonna stop right there in its tracks. Again, I think the Cookout might be the best new gun out of the batch. If the Slugger and the Punisher didn't exist, I think Cookout would probably be my go-to for the bug meta right now. But because they do exist, Cookout is just a unique little addition to the already strong Shoddy family and a new fun way to serve up democracy. Almost as fun as serving up damn good tasting zero sugar cereal courtesy of Magic Spoon. They're the sponsor of today's video, so let's thank them real quick. Those who watch me on Twitch know I'm easily distracted by food talk and I very much love cereal. Therefore, it should be a surprise to no one that I love Magic Spoon, a high-protein, no-sugar meal. And if you're worried that a no-sugar cereal would taste like a fresh spoonful of dry butt, fear not, they have a ton of great flavors. If you remember from last time, I got cocoa, fruity, peanut butter, and frosted. But just to make sure I'm really trying everything out here, this time I picked up blueberry muffin, cinnamon roll, maple waffle, and honey nut. And I'm 100% not kidding. I wanted to try every flavor to let y'all know which was my favorite, and I tell you, dear viewer, I polished off the entire box of maple waffle before I could finish shooting the B-roll footage. And you know what? I regret nothing. Maple waffle all day, every day, officially my favorite flavor, GG no re. Again, no artificial ingredients, zero sugar, and a damn good tasting wholesome snack that I don't feel guilty about eating. Use my code FALLOUT or click the link in the description to try Magic Spoon cereal today and get $5 off. You can also find Magic Spoon in your nearest grocery store, and Magic Spoon is so confident in their product it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee online. If you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Again, click the link in the video description or go to magicspoon.com/fallout for $5 off. Thank you, Magic Spoon. All right, back to democracy. Next up, we have the I-09 Heatseeker Light Armor. Armor passive inflammable gives you 75% damage resist to fire. Let me tell you, if you enjoy using the flamethrower at all or are into dealing fire damage in any way, the armor alone in the Freedom's Flame Warbond is probably going to be worth the purchase. One of the biggest pains in my ass ever playing Helldivers 2 is trying to immerse myself into the power fantasy of torching giant bugs with a flamethrower, only to end up roasting my own ass to a chewy well done. Dealing fire damage up close can so easily backfire on you. It's actually one of the reasons I fucking just hate the flamethrower in general. First of all, it has a charge up time to fire the weapon, which why? And because the range sucks a fat one, you have to use it up close. And when you do, if targets get close enough to leap at you or touch you, then you just end up lighting yourself on fire, and good lord, that hurts. Armor with the inflammable trait on it basically means you can spew fire anywhere and everywhere without having to worry too much about murdering yourself. At the end of the day, I really wish that we, the player, just took less damage from our own fire in general, but in the meantime, I guess this armor's better than nothing. Oh, and if you're on a planet with those goddamn fire tornadoes, you can now tank them pretty well thanks to this armor. The Draconaut armor has the exact same trait, by the way. The only difference is that it has a far more badass name, and it's medium armor instead of light. But yeah, they basically both do the exact same thing. Again, rejoice if you love spewing fire, but if not, Next up, we have the Flam-66 Torcher, the first ever primary weapon in its own category, the special category. TLDR, it's a non-stratagem version of the flamethrower, meaning if you really like using the original flamethrower, but you hate having to waste an entire stratagem on bringing one to the fight, then the Flam-66 got yo back. If we're comparing it to the stratagem flamethrower, the Flam-66 Torcher actually ain't bad. When fired continuously, the Flam-66 can go for a full 10 seconds, whereas the regular flamethrower can go for around 12.5 seconds. That's really not too shabby, considering that the regular flamethrower only has 4 mags total compared to the Flam-66, which has 6 total, meaning it has more ammo overall by default. Damage-wise, the game doesn't tell you the damage stat on the regular flamethrower, but I figured out a fun way to do bootleg damage testing. We're gonna burn our friends. I had my friends run through my path of fire on each flamethrower, and sure enough, the original stratagem flamethrower hit the hardest out of all 3. As you can see, it took my friend's health meter lower than both the Flam-66 and the Crisper. Yeah, it does barely seem like a difference on the health meter, but keep in mind that my friend was wearing the Draconaut armor to reduce the fire damage overall, so he could actually live through the attack to begin with. If you're wondering about the overall range of each flamethrower, I had a buddy take screenshots of each weapon as I was firing them, and it seems that they all actually have the same overall range, give or take, even the Crisper, which I gotta be honest is better than I expected. In short, the stratagem flamethrower is technically the best on paper. The Flam-66 has more mags total, but the OG flamethrower can shoot for longer and hits a bit harder. That being said, the Flam-66 is still not bad at all, considering it doesn't require you to call it in with a stratagem. The only annoying thing is that, again, I fundamentally fucking hate flamethrowers because they can only really be used at very close range, meaning if you're gonna roll with the Flam-66, you're gonna have to probably spend an extra stratagem anyway in order to also get a weapon that has any kind of range at all, like the autocannon or the anti-material rifle or whatever. Otherwise, if you just have a Flam-66 and a secondary weapon, you'll only be able to shoot enemies if they're so close you can smell their goddamn breath, and you have fun with that. Anywho, I just kind of randomly threw the Crisper into the mix there in our fire weapon damage test, so why don't we touch on that gun real quick. The Crisper is the final weapon of the Warbond appearing on page 3. In short, it's a mini flamethrower that you can use as a secondary weapon. Like the stratagem flamethrower, it gets 4 mags in total, but it unfortunately can only shoot for about 3.5 seconds before petering out. Extremely short when compared to its bigger brothers, but you know what? I actually kinda like the Crisper, because if I want to tap into the flamethrower power fantasy and burn things, I can do it with the Crisper while still being able to use a big boy primary weapon like my Bay the Slugger, and without needing to spend a stratagem. And from our bootleg damage testing, it seems that the Crisper does around as much base damage as the Flam-66. Granted, yeah, it can't hold that level of DPS for anywhere near as long due to the short fire duration, but again, I kinda like it. Moving on, the final thing to go over is the Firebomb Hellpod Booster. Lines all Hellpods with volatile incendiaries that detonate upon impact, igniting any units in the vicinity of the drop site. In short, anytime you use a stratagem that calls in a Hellpod of any kind, when it hits the ground, boom! And if you're wondering, not only does this work for literally every Hellpod, i.e. when you and your homies drop into the map, it also works for every weapon-based stratagem or resupply. If you're calling something into the battlefield that arrives in a Hellpod, you basically have an extra weapon on the field. And I won't lie, this is really funny, the idea of being able to use weapon resupplies offensively. Warning you right now though, you gotta be careful because these pods are freaking lethal. If your teammates aren't expecting it, then you're gonna lose a life or two right at the beginning of the mission as your oblivious friend gets barbecued trying to call in a freaking jetpack or whatever. I gotta be honest, even even though it's funny, I genuinely can't classify this as anything other than a meme. Can it help you in combat? Without question, yes, it can. But the problem is that there's such strong competition for boosters already. Between Hellpod space optimization, vitality enhancement, stamina enhancement, muscle enhancement, UAV recon booster, and even localization confusion, I don't know if I really see bringing Firebomb Hellpod Booster as a viable option at the high end of gameplay. If players had immunity to the booster damage or took way less, it would be a much stronger pick, but IMO, it's way more likely to be an annoyance to your team if somebody's not paying attention. By the way, Arrowhead, y'all gonna think about just making Hellpod space optimization a base kit at this point? Or are we not ready for that conversation just yet? Maybe another time. Anyway, assuming you're one of the people out there still actually playing Helldivers 2 on the regular, should you get the Freedom's Flame Warbond? I'd say you can easily answer that question based on how you feel about the flamethrower in general. Do you like the basic power fantasy of lighting your enemies on fire and scorching the battlefield? If yes, then yeah, this is probably for you. If you dislike the flamethrower for any reason, because it's tricky to use, because it's not hard meta at the highest difficulty, or for any other reason, this may not be for you. Then again, Arrowhead could always rebuff fire damage and things could be much, much better. Up to you. Let me know down in the comment section how you feel about it. That is, if you're still playing Helldivers 2 at all. I'm kind of wondering if I should make a video on is it worth returning to Helldivers after the most recent major update. Let me know if you want to see that too. Thank you very much for watching. Peace!